Hello, welcome back to Ycft. It is the 25th anniversary of a little film called The Faculty, directed by Robert Rodriguez, which is probably the strangest part of this film. This is right after he did
Rodriguez. From Dusk
Till
Till
Dawn.
Yeah.
But right before he did Spy Kids, so not the strangest career move. A pass of it was done by Kevin Williamson, so based on the success of Scream, his film was rushed into production. Obviously, I Know What You Did That Summer almost came out, so big time for Kevin Williamson, but
1998, so yeah, 2 years after Scream, 1 year after I Know What You Did Last Summer. Pass done by Kevin Williamson. Score is Marco Beltrami, returning from Scream as well. It is produced by Dimension Films and distributed by Miramax. Unfortunately, now a very tainted distribution and production company, but very big at the time in the 90s as well. So it's kind of a return of the Scream family in a way.
Basically. Yeah, so it was originally written in 1990, 1991, but kind of got shelved. And basically Kevin Williamson was brought in to do a pass on the dialogue.
Yes.
To make the dialogue specifically more hip. And to be honest, it does work like Kevin Williamson, especially in the 90s. Because
hip and scary.
Not long after this, CNN said that. No, CNN said The Thrilling Ride.
Yeah.
Fox said hip and scary.
Fox and CNN.
Obviously, not long after this, he went on to do Dawson's Creek, especially in the 1990s, early 2000s. Kevin Williamson just got how teenagers
very
spoke.
teen-centric era in terms of the content that was being produced at the time.
And this film, it basically did for sci-fi what Scream did for horror.
Yeah, yeah.
And this just leaked a little bit. This is actually a prop. I'm not just holding a pen.
This is a
Anyone who
homemade
knows
prop.
this film knows what this is.
Yes, we're not going to demonstrate it.
No, but I didn't have any white sugar, so it's brown sugar in here, so I might just eat it later. But it is actually a prop. It's basically Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
It is, which is itself referenced many times throughout the movie.
Yeah, and I got this cast. This is Elijah Wood right before
Lord of the Rings. Yep.
We got Josh Hartnett right
after Halloween H2O.
Yeah, so he would have been filming this before Halloween came out, and that that meme from H2O of Josh Hartnett walking past the barbershop saying the scariest thing is that the barbershop was right there. He's got the same haircut in this.
He does have the same haircut in this. Very questionable time for haircuts
Usher
and fringes.
is in this in a minor role.
Oh, we've got everyone. We've got Bebe Neuwirth, we've got Piper Laurie, we've got Robert Patrick, we have Selma Hayek, we've got Clea Duvall, we've got Famke Janssen, and more.
Yeah.
This is a who's who.
It's a really good time capsule from the 90s. So
it is. It really is.
Elijah Wood's character, he's the nerd. You described it as like the sci-fi version of the Breakfast Club.
It is like a sci-fi Breakfast Club version. Yeah. We go
sci-fi Breakfast Club version.
It's like sci-fi. It's been a long day. We have all like the stereotype personalities that you get in a high school. We've got the bad boy. We've got the popular girl. We've got the geek. We've got the goth emo girl. We have the new edition of the good girl.
We have the jock as well.
We also have the jock, but nice little subversions of those.
The 90s had a different playbook to the 80s. And
Absolutely.
I'm going to refer to that a bit later on. But you have to change the stereotypes, and Scream started to do that, and this film also continues it.
Absolutely.
It's basically Elijah Wood's character. I don't even care what his name is, he's just Elijah Wood.
Casey.
He finds like a little, to be honest, what looks like a shrimp thing on the football field. Basically, kind of discovered there might be like a new species, and minor spoilers throughout the entire. We're not going to spoil
the very end
because I feel like this film is starting to get appreciated.
It deserves to be seen,
but it deserves to be seen by more people.
Yeah,
and we don't just want to outright ruin it.
Yeah,
but there will be minor spoilers.
Yeah,
throughout. Turns out it is an alien parasite that has come to Earth, basically trying to take over the world. So it's almost kind of like a throwback to old 50s.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah.
This week we've just recorded, as I'm dressed exactly the same, we just recorded Eight-Legged Freaks, which is also a throwback to the 50s. This is a throwback to,
those monster creature feature, like atomic movies, aliens trying to take over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically they go in through the ear, and then basically they are wearing us like skin. They are. We
become hosts to them.
They are the drivers. We're just the vehicle.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
And their whole thing is obviously to take over the world. And they start off. There's a great line in it where it's like, why here? Like, why this little town? Like, what? It's like, if you were trying to like invade a world, would you go in for a big city, or would you go through the back door?
And because this is taking place against the backdrop of a school, the parasite also knows that it needs to take over the faculty before it can get to the students.
Yeah.
So it deliberately targets the teachers first. And actually, at the very beginning of the film, we have a really cool chase scene featuring Robert Patrick and Bebe Neuwirth.
Yeah, he's the T-1000.
He is the T-1000. In this, he's also the coach of the football team. Which is a very important kind of subplot in this film because it's kind of set in a small town. I think the town itself is actually referenced, although I didn't make a note of
it's a
where...
football town, so high school football. I know a big portion of our audience is actually American.
Yeah.
High school football, or soccer for you guys, is not big. It's
not big over here.
we play it in high school.
Yeah, it's not a thing.
That's it.
Why is varsity as well? I know I could easily Google this, but I never have. But that always really intrigues me. But yeah, football is not a big deal over here.
The film starts with them talking about budget cuts.
Yes.
Which 20 odd years later, 25 because of the 25th anniversary, still an issue today.
Relevant. Yeah.
But they're like, oh, well, the sports team's still going to get their new jerseys. It's like, well, yes, they basically bring in all the money for the school.
All the money is going to the sports team.
Yeah, because they're the biggest part of the school. And I don't feel like that has changed
a
lot. But it kind of sets off the dynamic straight away.
Robert Patrick is a very kind of...
we know what he's like to deal with. He's basically T-1000, but who speaks more and smiles more. But he's still
great
intimidating.
in this.
Yeah, great chase sequence with the headmistress.
Yes.
Chase throughout the school.
Puts up a hell of a good fight.
Puts up a hell of a good fight. As the days go on, Casey, Elijah Wood, starts noticing people acting strangely. And obviously after discovering this new thing.
Yes.
But kind of like Scream, they base their entire knowledge of what's going on movies.
The only thing that they really have to go off is sci-fi, is science fiction. What they've either read in books or what they've seen in the films. And so hence why Invasion of the Body Snatchers becomes quite a prevalent thing. Clea Duvall's character, who's for all intents and purposes like the goth emo girl of the group, she's quite big on her sci-fi, and she talks about the pod people in that story and how they take over the bodies and reduce everyone to just kind of mindless drones, devoid of personality, but just inherently kind of going about the same day to day as you would. So they kind of base a lot of their actions and a lot of their decisions kind of come from sci-fi and film. Yeah, so it's the sci-fi version of Scream.
There is a queen, there is a big one.
There's a big mama, yeah.
That would need to be taken out, and then they're in theory, everyone who's got a parasite will be fine. They have no idea if this is going to work or not.
They don't know but their theory is if you kill the queen, then in theory, everyone else should just return to normal. The parasite will die. So it's almost like a hive mind.
Hive mind,
yeah.
Works out what's going on quite early on, but the aliens themselves I find quite interesting. Obviously, they've come from a water-based planet, because we see one teacher who gets it, and you see her in the shower and just basically falling apart. It's a great scene where the student's just oh my god, and her tries to help her because she tries to touches her hair, and a scalp just comes away.
Oh,
and basically they throughout the film you see teachers constantly drinking water, and that's because they need to stay hydrated.
Yes, absolutely.
And that it turns out that teacher had cancer, and
the body it couldn't take. The body was too corrupt for it to effectively work. But yeah, it changes them in lots of different ways. So I mean, I love the beginning because we are introduced to all of the teachers, and even though we don't spend a huge time with them in the opening scene, we get a glimpse as to what their personalities are like. So the headmistress is very kind of, they're all a bit run down, and they're all annoyed that they're working in this school that gets no money and no funding, and they're all frustrated. Some of them are a bit more meek than others. Robert Patrick as the coach is very kind of just manic and all the pressure that he has, and he's very aggressive and he's very kind of macho. And then when the parasite takes over, you see a change. Physically you see a change, but also emotionally you see a change. So
everyone's much calmer. Even
everyone
the teacher
is calmer.
We see who is slipping booze into his coffee. They're all starting to drink water. It's they almost they become better at communicating. They become healthier.
Yes, yeah. It's the personality is kind of gone, and everyone is kind of monotone. But I mean, they do become a sort of more. I don't know if it's a better version necessarily, but a more a changed version of themselves.
Yeah.
And even physically it manifests, because where some of them might have been wearing dowdy clothes, moth-eaten clothes, or just kind of very, very conservative, they suddenly become a little bit more I don't know, like there's a confidence, and there's like the headmistress, the mini skirt gets even minier and a little bit more cleavage is shown. And I think the biggest example of this is Famke Janssen's character, Miss Burke. So she's the English teacher at the high school, very, very timid, very meek, very conservative, not very loud spoken. And then as soon as she's taken over, she becomes Famke Janssen.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's another
Yeah.
character who at one point is just naked and doesn't even like notice.
Yes, yeah, doesn't even realise. And that's how one character is able to clock on that they must be infected, because they don't even, the inhibitions, like the idea that
Yeah.
clothes are conservative is just not even a thing.
But with Robert Patrick's character, we have the jock who wants to leave the team because it's quite interesting things. Like, he has grades changed because he's a good football player. Obviously, football, like we mentioned, is a massive part of this, and it bothers him. It bothers him that
Yeah.
they won't let him fail, and he wants to quit something that he's really good at to try and be better at something else. He's basically been told he's going to go to college on like a scholarship. He's like, well, what if I just, the time I put into football, I put into studying. And I don't really think we see this in many other films, like a character actively wanting to improve themselves like that. And his girlfriend is actually like, look, I'm the head cheerleader. I date the head, the top football star. It's like, what are you without that?
Yes.
And it's kind of deconstructing the
Stereotypes.
the stereotypes. But he leaves team after the coach has been infected, and he's just like, yeah, all right. He's like, oh, the coach is very calm. Like a later conversation, he's very different. Like, whereas previously, I think watching this as an adult, it's like, yeah, he must have all the. If this is a football town and football brings in most of the school's money, the amount of pressure he must be under.
Yeah, absolutely.
And suddenly he's just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
He's like,
I wouldn't be a decent
he's
human
like,
being.
thank you for being so calm. So yeah, I wouldn't be a good human being if. It's like they almost cure you of the human condition.
Yes, it's like the parasite is still trying to like figure out exactly what it is to be human and to act human. So it's it is quite it's really good actually. Like
Rob Patrick has a really good career of playing characters who are pretending to be human.
Yeah, and obviously just what you were saying there, like the film. Kevin Williamson especially is just really good at giving a commentary on teenagers and social hierarchies and how that exists in high school, how it's very prevalent in high school. But he is similarly very good at subverting some of those expectations as well.
Yeah.
Like I do love that scene between Jordana Brewster and
Brewster.
Brewster.
We just recently rewatched Terminator 3, so I can't hear Bruce. I was about hearing Catherine Brewster.
Catherine Brewster and her boyfriend, and she's like, yeah, like I can't date you if you're not in the football team. Like that's just not how this works. And then he has a conversation with Clea Duvall's character later on in the film, and he's he'd got a D in a test.
He's like, it's my D. I earned that D.
But it was the teacher changed it to an A. Because he's the school's like lead quarterback, so like he can get away with stuff like that. But he takes it so personally. He's like, no, I earned that D. It was my.
He said he'd actually worked quite hard.
Yeah, and it was instantly he passed it because.
I really like that.
I do too. I actually like all of these characters.
Jordana Brewster plays Delilah, the head cheerleader.
She's like the bitchy one.
Yeah, obviously dating Stan, the quarterback.
The popular girl. Yeah.
One thing I really like is. Because it's her and Casey that work out what's going on first. Well, she's kind of like snooping for stuff. Is she a cheerleader or is she a newspaper?
I think she works on the newspaper. Like she's part of the committee. Like she's a writer for it, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so clearly smarter than your average like lead character in these films. But she's snooping in the faculty office to the faculty lounge to try and find out what's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
So not find out what's going on, find out dirt. She wants dirt, whereas Casey's like looking around trying to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
That's when they discover they see Salma Hayek, who's the school nurse.
Yes. Being infected.
And they find a dead body in the closet. The next time we see her, she decides to go incognito, so she's wearing glasses and dressing more conservative. I just find it absolutely hilarious that she literally did the Clark Kent.
She literally thought by wearing glasses.
She thought by wearing glasses people wouldn't recognise her.
Yeah, I know.
And so she was like, oh, wear contacts. Even her boyfriend's like, you wear glasses?
Yeah.
It's like that Clark Kent fit. I instantly, when we were watching it, I was like, no, she's not.
Yeah, the pairings in this film I liked as well, because even though they all do eventually convene as a group, but initially you have moments between Delilah and Casey Elijah Wood's character, and he's the bully victim. Like, he is the absolute geek of the school. He's also on the newspaper committee. Like, he's a photographer, and they actually have like a little moment together where he calls her out on his shit basically, and she kind of, I think she quite likes that.
Yeah.
And then you've got moments between Stokely, Clea Duvall's character, and Stan, who's like the quarterback and the goth girl. So it's when I say it's the sci-fi version of The Breakfast Club, it literally is like all these different kind of.
So we also have the
new
girl and the drug dealer.
The new girl and the drug dealer. Oh, Zeke. We got to talk about Zeke.
Josh Hartnett's character. So that's what this comes from. He's such an interesting character. At the same time, I feel like a lot of his stuff was cut. He's the drug dealer, and he makes the drugs himself.
Yeah.
And when this new creature is brought in, he instantly almost takes over from the science teacher and analyzes it. He is clearly shown to be extremely
very smart guy.
In fact, he has a little lab, and he deals drugs in ballpoint pens. It's not outwardly said, but it's like, well, it just kind of makes sense because no one's going to look twice at a student with a pen.
That's true.
Yeah. And I've never seen anything like that since.
Selling them out of the trunk of his car on school property.
He almost wants to be weird. Like, again, this kind of shows like how much time has passed, because the first person he deals drugs to in the film is Danny Masterson.
Always Danny Masterson.
It just made you kind of go, hide.
I know.
You bad man.
I know. It's a shame. It's such a shame. But he
doesn't have a big. He's literally in two shots.
Yeah.
Not in two scenes, just two shots of the film.
Yeah. But Zeke is really interesting.
Like he gets along with the new girl.
Yeah, Mary Beth.
He's very innocent, very has that southern twang. But when we see his house, he clearly has
comes from money.
Comes from money.
Yeah.
His parents aren't around. Drives a really nice car, so it's so he doesn't need the money.
No.
But the fact he's doing it so blatantly on school property, I think he wants to be. He's definitely not getting the attention he needs at home.
No.
Because the line when one of the teachers has been obviously possessing, like, I'm so sick of your shit. Like, where are your parents this time? What European country? What bullshit is it this time? And it's.
What are you gonna do? You gonna call my mother?
Oh, and how am I supposed to do that, little Zeke boy? Do you even know where she is? Europe, Sri Lanka, Japan. I wonder what remote location she went to this week.
When we make it to his house, he's like, oh, yeah, they're in Europe somewhere. It's like, oh no, they actually do just jet off and leave him.
Yeah. So he's
and he's been held back a year. But they're like, You're smart enough. You could have just done it. Like, he's actively chosen to be held back. These are the extents he's going to.
Yeah.
Just to try and get some. Again, he never outwardly says it because he's not like heart on his sleeve type person.
No.
It's his actions are kind of speaking for him. He just maybe just wants to be loved.
I think he's one of those characters where you could interpret him and his actions in different ways. So I mean, you could just look at him and think, yeah, he's the bad boy. He doesn't really care like what happens to him either which way. You could look at him and think, oh, like he doesn't mind being held back a year because he's a bit of a big fish in a small pond. Like he's clearly I think he's worked quite hard at kind of cultivating the bad boy image that he has.
Because he's also not like one of those bad, like popular bad boys. Like people are wary of him. Yeah.
Well, he's like he's Patrick in 10 Things. He's just like he's a drug dealing Patrick from 10 Things. Yeah. It's like stay away from this guy, and he has an interesting relationship with Miss Burke. Again,
originally like timid.
Yeah, so she's the Famke. I think is it Jansen or Jansen? I don't know. I always want to make it silent, the J. And yeah, so she's a very timid teacher. She's his English teacher, and when they're in class together, he's a little bit sarky with her. Like he gives her a lot of innuendo, but she's looking out for him, and I think you can tell she's maybe a little bit intimidated by him, but she knows like he's worth the effort. Like if she maybe just keeps on trying, like maybe she'll get through to him, because he is clearly a smart guy, and he's also in a way a sensitive guy too, because I like the scene where she goes to confront him by his car again before she's been infected. She's like clutching onto a books or whatever it is, like against it. Almost looks like a student instead, not a teacher. And that's when she says, like if you put half as much effort into your studies as you do to this, like the drug dealing, I don't know why he doesn't get in more trouble for that, by the way, when a teacher
maybe
like
it's just,
catches him red-handed. But
or maybe it's like because
Yeah.
of how underfunded the school is, they basically just don't have the facilities to deal with someone like that.
yeah, and maybe she also probably knows that he's got going through some shit at home or something like that. So, but
Seems
anyway,
like he tries to offer a. So, do you want anything, or do you just want like something for your headache, or do you want something else? Pulls out a box of cherry condoms.
cherry flavored condoms, and she instantly kind of it touches a nerve, which was
Yeah.
obviously the intention. But when she walks away and she's clearly very embarrassed and offended by what he's done, like he just kind of rests his head against the trunk. He knows like he's gone a step too far. Like he didn't want to hurt her feelings. He just wanted to get under her skin.
Yeah.
A little bit, but he feels bad
But
by how that
their relationship
went down.
is not necessarily one of the weaker points, but I do feel like there's been stuff that's been cut.
I agree.
Because when she is infected and she confronts him,
Mm.
well, she's wearing a cherry red dress, obviously in reference to the condoms
He's
later
Ziggy
on. They do
boy.
have a bit of like a
I love-
confrontation, a fight
When
when
she-
she's at full aliens tentacles.
Yeah, Famke Janssen at full parasite mode is
Yeah.
wonderful. I love that scene.
But
so
it's clear,
much.
like you said, like as they become much more like flirty when they're
Yes, there's a physical change. to them.
there's a physical
yeah,
change.
the inhibitions go.
But I definitely feel like there's some previous relationship that we just aren't privy to.
See, when you say relationship, how do
Because
you define
based
that?
on- Based on how she looks at him towards the end of the film, there's an attraction. And because he's been a bit held back here, so he's obviously slightly older, don't know if there was ever hints at a romantic entanglement or the fact she might be attracted to him, he might be attracted to her. I don't think anything has physically happened, but I feel like there's definitely a tension there
There's a tension.
that maybe could have made when they have to actually like fight each other
Yeah.
a bit more impactful.
I think they've known each other for at least a year, because again he's been held back a year. So I think there's definitely been some hints at, you know, like a dynamic between them that's been building for at least a year. And I think just based on the glimpses that we see before she is turned, they clearly have like this almost kind of push and pull. Like it almost borders on banter, but it's kind of one-sided because she can't give it back. She's just not that type of person. And I think he enjoys trying to get a little bit of a rise out of her, but I do think it's born from an attraction.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like when a guy at school likes a girl, but he doesn't know how to express it, so he ends up making fun of her. You know, it's like it's that kind of a thing,
Yeah.
but it's just also weird at the end where like it's very much hinted at that they might be pursuing an actual relationship here. She's his fucking teacher.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, he's probably 18 years old, but she is still his teacher. It's a bit of a strange one
Yeah.
for a high school movie.
Or maybe it's by the end, like, you know, you've been infected by an alien parasite, you've overside
Yeah.
or fought off
Also-
aliens. If you like someone, why wait?
I've also just
Everything must look
That's
so
true.
petty afterwards.
that's very true. I've also just clocked now in the first season of Dawson's Creek, there is a relationship. There's a subplot of Pacey, and he has an affair with one of his teachers, and it is like a full blown affair. And I can't remember how long it lasts throughout the show, but that is a thing. So it's clearly something that Kevin Williamson maybe toyed with in
Do you
this.
think he had a crush on a teacher when he was younger?
Maybe. So
Wait.
yeah, I think maybe the faculty set the
Yeah.
this walk so Dawson's Creek could run.
His magic pens. He calls it his magic dust.
yeah.
Basically, again, me saying earlier that the 90s had a different rule book. In the 80s, in a slasher film especially, someone does call it a slasher, but in a horror movie,
Yeah.
if you had sex, if you did drugs, you were most likely going to die.
Yes, them's the
In
rules.
this film, so we have the teachers when they're infected or possessed. It kind of is like a possession.
It kind of is, yeah.
They start drinking a lot more water. They start working together a bit better, like we've said previously. They don't like this because this has caffeine in it and it dries them out.
Yes.
So basically, they work out when they're fighting a teacher, and he stabs science teacher in the eye with this, that this is how you defeat them.
Yes.
So their way of proving they're not infected is they have to snort it, and it's all like pop the cap off, they're always covering the nose when they do it.
Yeah.
It's basically it's like the Thing.
It is. Well, there's
Testing within the Thing. And whenever a character is separated from the group, there's always that mistrust when they come back. And I always find that really amusing that the characters that don't work well together are mistrusting of each other and using drugs are the ones that get through. And it's that subverting expectations that there'd
Yes.
never be a film. I don't know. I wonder what the MPAA thought about this. The fact that
I was
you
thinking
actively
that
have
as
to be
well.
taking drugs throughout the film to
Yeah,
survive it.
the plot literally advocates the taking of drugs
Yeah.
to save the day. It's very bizarre, and yet there is a scene where they end up in Zeke's basement, which is basically his lab, and they all realise like they have to
I think
take.
it's his garage, isn't it?
Is it his garage? It's basically it's like a lab, though,
Yeah.
isn't it? Like
Oh,
his
it's a full-on...
laboratory.
It's in
proper-
that
he
scene when
has
you
a-
actually realise just how smart he is.
He has a mouse or a rat in a cage, like the typical white, like albino experimentation rat that doesn't fare well
Yeah.
in this film. But yeah, there's a scene where they all have to snort it to prove
You
to
can
each
tell
other.
Elijah Wood's character's never done a single drug before because he tweaks straight away.
Yeah, and I love Josh Hartnett's line is like, "Let him fucking tweak,
Let him
man."
tweak, man.
Yeah, I know, but they all have to take it, and so very reminiscent of. It's basically just an outright like homage to that scene in The Thing where they test the blood
Yeah, but it's certain
one
bits
by
like
one.
the final thing because again, we're not spoiling who gets infected
Yeah,
because I think that's part of the fun is as the audience trying to work out who is infected.
who it is, yeah, and at what point.
But like they're very limited supply on obviously what they have for certain circumstances. You can't make more.
Yeah,
Throughout the film, obviously, they're constantly having to do this to prove they're not infected, but then they're in a very critical situation, tripping balls.
they are tripping
There's
balls.
bits of Elijah Wood in the final sequence where he's like, oh, God. Because he has
God
to prove that
damn
he's
it.
not, he's like,
Not again.
suddenly in a really bad situation. He's like,
Yeah.
and I just really, because again, there's no other film
No.
like this. As far as I'm aware, I imagine there is some film where it's like you have to take a drug and you see the,
Yeah.
maybe. There's something in the back of my mind telling me that something exists, but I always thought, especially for 98, that was such a unique
Oh,
thing.
absolutely.
I always
Absolutely.
like, you see him as constantly like flicking.
Yeah.
It's going to let me do it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Constantly just like flicking the lids off, like
Yeah,
ready to
yeah,
go,
yeah.
get ready to.
Yeah. There was one bit I did notice is like they, for one reason or another, they are short on supply. And so they only have a couple of pens on them. So it's like, oh my God, like this is very time critical. Like, use it wisely. Use it wisely. Like only use it if you are sure that, you're dealing with someone that's infected. But then Josh Hartnett suddenly realises, he's like, oh, actually, I've got a stash in my car.
Forgets he has a couple in his car.
He actually forgets. So it's like, okay, we'll forget that tension. We actually can save the day.
Yeah.
That then also leads to a pretty cool sequence.
Because the aliens work out early on that.
Yeah.
Because later on, I always say this, Danny Masterson is possessed. And he's like, oh, you got any more? And he's like, what about any more? Any more?
Yeah,
And
where's all of them?
He keeps asking for more and more. And even just, I can tell something's a bit off, like, even not knowing there's aliens around, he's like, that probably isn't wise
Yeah.
to sell more. So he just kind of like puts them
Hides
all like
them.
back into his pocket.
Yeah.
Not on me, man.
What about in your locker? What about in your car? You got any more there?
Use in moderation, boys.
Come on, Zeke, hook us up.
And so they do work out that like the drugs are bad because they actively try to stop them from being able to produce it.
Yeah, definitely. I also really like how one of the key scenes is there's a big football game towards the end of the film, and so our core group know that whoever the queen is probably going to be at the football field. So we end up back at the school for the final showdown, and they lock themselves in the school.
Yeah. I was just like that whole thing because you see throughout the fight like Usher, he was
Usher's there, yeah.
Like they're actually tackling people and then like infecting them on the pitch. So because they know if they don't deal with it tonight, the next day it's going to be too far spread. Because I definitely think the infection has gotten further than we realise.
Yeah.
Because the radios are down.
Yeah.
They definitely get some of the police. So it's definitely spread a lot further.
It's spreading,
Yeah.
pandemic.
A bit, yeah, it's kind of coming out of a pandemic to see something
Yeah.
like that. It's like if you don't stop it now, you're just not going to be able to contain it.
Yeah. And I love it when ultimately, even though they're making so many good decisions, like they isolate themselves, they arm themselves, they lock themselves in, but they realise like if we're gonna do this, we are gonna have to separate at some point. One of us is gonna have to play decoy. You know, one of us is going to have to run over there whilst the other, does this. And so they have, one by one, they have to separate. And that obviously leads to some realizations and some other infections.
Yeah. Again, it makes you think of The Thing all the time.
And constantly The Thing, but in a high school setting.
But even like similar thing, like the design, like, because they have a finger from one of their teachers.
Yeah.
They test it on the rat and the tentacles come out. That is very, very reminiscent to the dog at the beginning of The Thing.
Yeah.
And just the design of the aliens in total, like the way they kind of change, it is very Thing-esque, although they're very like... It's an interesting design. 1998 compositing. I think for the most part the effects look really good. It's just dated.
I think they look really good. I mean,
some good practicals as well.
Famke Janssen getting when it's just the head, like the tentacle head,
that
doesn't look the best.
No.
But the big practical queen at the end looks phenomenal.
It mixes between like a big CG one and a practical one, and I think it works. I love it when like the whole football team and the coach it's just raining.
Yeah.
And they go. Stan just goes to check if when they think they've killed the queen, and they're just checking it all out, and they're just stood there in the rain, and you see like it's almost like subsurface skin. You see it below what they actually now look like.
There's also
they're just stood there, just obviously hydrating in the rain. It's it's fantastic.
It's so good, yeah. And I think I mentioned when we were watching it, I was like, this could easily be, or it feels like it could have been a really good episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons, obviously the high school, kids versus the faculty, the teachers, but also, do you remember the Praying Mantis episode?
I'll never forget the Praying Mantis episode.
There's similarities, right?
Yeah.
Like even in like the design of the Queen Parasite at the end, I think that was what was going through my head at the time. But yeah, like Buffy again, like another very teen-centric, horror sci-fi-esque show.
Yeah. I've got a couple of issues I think with certain scenes that I think just kind of just happen just to lead into other scenes, and we jump around a little bit. I definitely feel like stuff was cut from this film, but I won't let it go because the pacing of this film is really good. Everything.
Yeah.
The film doesn't really slow down. It just kind of keeps going.
It keeps going and going.
I'm fine to lose a few things if the overall package is a bit is more tight.
Yeah.
And it's just I don't watch this one nearly enough. I think this is only like the second or third time I've watched it.
It actually is really, really good.
I think the only reason we own this is like we bought some more Blu-ray, and that was like get it for a couple of quid if you buy anything else. And
ridiculously cheap.
So it's like, oh yeah, okay.
Well, of course I'm going to get the faculty. And I mean it when I say I like all of these characters. I mean, even like, the bitchy ones. Like, obviously they're the bitch, but they're still fun to watch. There's never a character I think that's wasted.
No. Maybe Usher.
Usher, he's not really a main character though.
I only think he's on the front cover because he's Usher.
Yeah.
That's the only reason he's on there.
He's by no means a main character.
But he is like, because the credits are like those typical, like, I love the 90s credits where it's like a little bit of footage, freeze frame, name. He does appear on there.
Yeah.
Selma Hayek is like top billed on that as well, but she's barely in the film.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, of course she worked with him in From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
So she probably, I don't know if they were good
friends. Again, it's like odd career choice for Rodriguez, but I think he obviously is a very talented filmmaker. It was a weird, when you see him go from Dusk Till Dawn to this, to Spy Kids, like full blown like crime horror film, teen sci-fi horror film, kids films. Like, all right, he watered himself down.
Yeah.
Again, it's hard. It feels bad giving Kevin Williamson full credit for this one just because he didn't come up with a story.
But he is his fingerprints are all over it.
Yeah, well, they asked him to direct.
They did ask him to direct.
But he said no. It was going to be his directorial debut, but he turned down to do a film called
Teaching Miss Tingle, which
flopped apparently. So they asked Robert Rodriguez to do it.
I wonder how he feels about that.
I do think, because not all writers are great directors.
No.
And I think Robert Rodriguez was a really good...
He's also a good editor.
Yes, yeah, he always edits his own films as well.
Yeah.
And I think only Robert Rodriguez can edit his stuff.
Yeah.
He films things in a very particular way. He knows how things are going to come together.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, even though this wasn't Williamson's brainchild, he did do a pass of this.
Obviously, the dialogue is a massive part.
Massive part.
It wouldn't surprise me if he only kept the treatment.
Yeah, I know we're not comparing films necessarily, but of the Williamson films, this for me is the characters are so much better than the ones you get in I Know What You Did Last Summer. These characters are a much more memorable bunch and a lot more likeable bunch,
for sure.
I think.
It's great. If you haven't seen it, again, if you want this nice time capsule of the 90s.
Yeah.
Because you look at the fashion alone, a lot of the 90s fashions, I don't think Elijah Wood, I think short sleeve checkered shirts.
Yeah.
I don't think they ever worked. They're very much like middle-aged work in an office in the 90s type look.
Yeah.
Whereas, I know I'm wearing a checkered shirt, but everyone rolls them up.
Yeah.
Zeke's outfits, 100% still work.
Yeah.
The 90s never really went away.
The 90s never went away, but I think, even what Mary Beth wears, I think, the dress and the boots, you could wear that today. Clea Duvall's goth outfit, you could easily wear today.
Josh Hartnett's hairstyle. You can never wear today.
No. Also, Famke Janssen and Bibi Nurith, their hairstyles are scarily similar to the point where you got confused
I got
between
confused,
the two.
yeah.
Like, both obviously dark-haired actresses, but they both have those really blunt bangs, like very Courtney Cox-esque.
It's before
in
Scream 3, though.
It's before, like, it paved the way. That was clearly, I don't know, popular hairstyle for the time. But also, the film, again, like, no firm spoilers, but it ends very Scream-esque because it ends with a news report. And then also...
Let's be fair. The Weinsteins wanted another Scream.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
they're gonna want it to be as close to Scream as possible.
It kills me to say this, but the Weinsteins, as fucking despicable people as they were, like, they knew to pick good films.
Yeah.
They did have a good knack for picking decent scripts, absolutely. But like there's a scene with Josh Hartnett at the end where he's just smoking in front of a teacher, and all the teacher says is like, "Yo, put that out and get back over here." Like that. There's no fucking way now you could have a student smoking in a high school film. Like, I think that's just an outright ban. That would for sure. Like, I know this is like a horror film, so it was a 15 even at the time. But, like, there's absolutely no way you'd have a high school kid smoking now in a major feature film. Oh, it's also the fact, like, I know we touched on it, but he is dealing drugs with teachers' knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, nothing is done about that. So, yeah, I do love that side of it, 90s films. We lost the lid.
Let's flick the lid off again. So, do you know how long it took me to get the sugar into this without a funnel?
We're going to use this prop as much as we can.
Oh, absolutely. It's just one of the most unique...
Ideas.
Yeah. That just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And, yeah, this film's very, very rewatchable.
It really is. It's ooh.
It's only sugar.
How's that?
It's nice. I mean, there's no ink in it.
It is a really good film.
Go do it like in the film. Just...
Yeah. Let him fucking tweak me.
Yeah, just everyone covering the nostril. That's probably how they got around the MPAAs, not showing them actually do it.
Yeah.
Like cover up.
Well, this is what I mean. It's like, obviously, we're going back to 1998. So how you do things now will have changed. Like, you can't show teenagers drinking alcohol in films anymore. Now it has to be disguised in, like, the classic red plastic cup. Like, the inference that they're drinking alcohol without actually seeing them drink alcohol explicitly. So The Faculty is one of those movies where, yeah, you could remake it today, but it would look probably quite different.
Yeah, it would look and feel very... I think the 90s just lent itself to this.
Yeah.
But specifically the late... If the film came out in the early 90s...
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been the same film in the late 90s.
No, because we're still in the back of the 80s, I guess. Like, just in the immediate aftermath of
I think
that.
It would have been a very different film, but a film in the 80s... The Faculty in the 80s would have been a very fun film, but I think it would have been more slasher.
Yeah.
Than anything else. I would have loved a Faculty type film in the 80s, but the late 90s was just...
Yeah.
I'd say between 97 and 2004 would have been the perfect window for a film like this.
This film also did very well. So the budget was 15 million and it grossed 63.2 million.
Sorry.
Yes. You just munch away your magic dust. Yeah, it did very well. And obviously now it's achieved cult status. I mean, it's by nowhere near as famous as Scream, but I think for the people that have seen it, everyone's in agreement.
Everyone I know that's watched this film really likes it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those films people kind of forget about, and then when they're reminded of it, they're like, "Oh shit, yeah, like that is actually really good." I think the same year actually we get Urban Legend, which is not Kevin Williamson, but it's another teen horror.
Yeah. Also, we had
outright slasher.
Like early in the year, we had H2O, which was obviously massive for Josh Hartnett. I was introducing him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm 100% going to watch it again.
I'll watch it again.
25 years.
Also, just when Josh Hartnett's dealing out his pens, but is he also like dealing out VHSs or something like that earlier on in the film? And he makes an explicit reference to both Neve Campbell and Jennifer Love Hewitt going full frontal. He's like, "Oh yeah, like watch this, like yeah, they get the tits out or whatever." Like clearly a nod to Scream, and I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
Which I just really...
It's weird. You'll never see a film where people are dealing VHSs. I'd completely forgotten about that.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, full frontal, right? Neve Campbell and Jennifer Love Hewitt.
But yeah.
So it's still like, it's meta in its own way.
I would be interested in seeing a remake if they ever did it. It'd be, like I said, it'd be a very different film, but I'd be interested in it.
I think the cast would be key. I think the cast is like the beating heart of this film. It's a really solid premise, but I do really enjoy watching the cast, all of them, like kids and
Right on the
faculty.
verge of them all, like making it, a lot of them making it big.
Yeah, I mean Elijah Wood, man, like life was never the
He's
same
a
again.
baby.
Yeah,
Even though it's literally a year before. So you would have, when this film came
I think
out,
he was
you would have
auditioning.
been filmed. Well,
I think he auditioned when he was making this film.
yeah, there's a good chance that before the film even came out, then he was filming Lord of the Rings,
Potentially.
which
yeah.
is baffling.
Yeah.
Absolutely baffling.
So yeah, that is the faculty.
Yeah, if you like Scream, check it out.
Yeah.
You'll have great fun. Like you can make a really good movie night out of Scream. I Know What You Did Last Summer and The Faculty.
Yeah.
Like that is a great like marathon.
It actually is. That would be a
that
really
would be a
fun
fantastic
night.
marathon.
It really would.
Check that out. I think this one's on Prime actually. I've seen it on Prime a couple of times.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So like it's been on Netflix a couple of times, but I think we literally got this for like £3
Yeah.
in HMV.
I'm so happy we did. It was really good quality as well.
No special features on it, but like for £3 I don't mind.
I don't mind.
Just based on something I said earlier, if you know of any other films where a character has to do drugs in order to see or defeat the villain, can you let me know? Because something's telling me that I'm forgetting something. And I just can't quite think what it is.
Yeah, what other film or TV show do drugs save the day?
Yeah.
Do the bad drugs save the day?
Yeah, exactly. Because it is meant to be like hard drugs.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, subvert expectations. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you next week.